so thanks for having me, and I'm excited that everybody will get to hear from Daria and Shorna about this research project. I'm going to just give a little bit of context about our team at the Hudson River Estuary Program. As Riva said, my name is Laura Heedy, and I've been with the Hudson River Estuary Program through a partnership with Cornell University's Department of Natural Resources and the Environment since 2006. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of background. So the work of our team at the Estuary Program is covered by the Hudson River Estuary Action Agenda, which comes out every 5 years, and we're currently in the 5th year of our action agenda. And it represents the work of all of our teams throughout the program to accomplish benefits both for the ecosystem as well as the residents of the watershed. And the team that I manage is focused on the conserved natural areas benefit of the action agenda. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's two important things, though, to know that are factors in really how we think about our work. One is I always like to brag that the Hudson Valley is the most biodiverse part of New York State. And like 25 years ago, our team worked with Cornell on a gap analysis to look at the biodiversity in the valley. And just even looking at these data for vertebrate species, we can see that of almost all of the vertebrate species that have known locations throughout the state of New York, most of them occur right in the estuary watershed. And the same could be said for invertebrate species, plant life, and so forth. So we have a really amazing biodiversity in this small part of southeastern New York. The other aspect of our watershed is what I like to call it being a complex decision-making landscape. There's more than 250 municipalities, so those are individual cities, villages, and towns, each with their own role in making decisions about lands and waters. In addition to that, about 90% of the land in the watershed is privately owned. So those are a lot of different individuals and different communities all making decisions about land and water. And then we can layer on top of that land trusts, county, states, and others. State agencies, only one state. And so looking again at the action agenda, so our goal that we're trying to achieve is that lands and waters that are recognized as regional priorities, that's important, are incorporated into conservation and land use plans and policies in the watershed. So it's not like we're trying to actually acquire land through our work. We're trying to work through the land use planning process in the state of New York. Because if you're not from New York, you might not be familiar that all of these individual municipalities have home rule authority to make decisions about land use. And so the approach of our team is kind of these four main pieces. First, we have to really understand what those priorities are. So we're working with scientific partners to develop current data sets always, and I'll share just a couple of examples of that. So that we can understand priorities in the watershed. We're then out there as extension staff, raising awareness to help municipal officials understand those resources and those priorities, as well as how they can incorporate that into the land use process. And we provide a lot of technical assistance to help see that happen and to get those data actually into local plans and policies. And then finally, we also contribute to state initiatives related to biodiversity, conservation, and resilience. So here's just two examples of ways we've tried to help others understand and interpret the biodiversity resources in the valley. One from 20 years ago, which is our framework for conservation that identified 23 significant biodiversity areas in the Hudson Valley. And then, throughout the years, we've come up with different tools, but most recently, our Forest Condition Index, which was developed in collaboration and led by the New York Natural Heritage Program. But as you can imagine, a lot of municipal officials wouldn't necessarily know how to use these sorts of data sets. So that's why we're out there providing extension and assistance as well. And the approach we encourage municipalities to take is really what's used in conservation planning, watershed planning, and other broader scale approaches. But this can be used at the local level, and that's to take an inventory of what you have. And so we encourage natural resource inventories to be completed by municipalities. And then to pair that with setting priorities, so taking both regional biodiversity priorities as well as what the community cares about. So the community might care about their forest, their farmland, their source water, their streams, and so forth. Ooh, this is advancing on its own. And then they can determine what's appropriate for their community to then plan and establish policies for conserving those priorities. And so just to look back at the action agenda, we do have some specific targets we're trying to reach. One of which is to see new plans, policies adopted by municipalities, 25 municipalities by 2025. And also that we want these inventories not just to be completed, but to be implemented. And we have some specific targets related to that. And an example of how this works, this is a town in Orange County. They went ahead and developed a natural resource inventory with our program's help. They then got input from residents on what they care about, and they were able to take all of that along with map analysis and develop a map of priority open space areas in an inventory. And what's exciting is they then use that to inform a community preservation plan, which can be used to prioritize spending of conservation funds for land protection. So we try to do this in many places. And just to kind of wrap up with an example of one of our metrics we're measuring is, since we've been really focusing on natural resource inventories and their implementation in the last 10 years, we've helped 51 municipalities complete NRIs, and we're getting close to that 40% target. We have that 40% are using those for other policies. And so we're up to 37% of those. And all this and more is available on our Cornell DNR website, and you can look at different case studies, different resources and data sets, and the web address is there, and I can put that in the chat. So with that, that was just a little bit of an overview to provide some context before my wonderful colleagues, Daria and Shorna, share the research that they've been doing.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for that great introduction, Laura. I'm really honored to be here to present along with my colleagues, Daria Ponstingel and Laura Heedy, the work that we've been doing, which is a true collaborative effort that really highlights the work of municipalities in strengthening conservation throughout the Hudson River estuary watershed. Next, if we could just want to reiterate that. Next. Thank you. Just wanted to reiterate that we have a strong collaborative team comprised of 4 people that Laura Heedy mentioned, the conservation and land use team. It includes Christine Vanderlen. It includes Laura Heedy as the leader, as well as a new staff member that'll be coming on board very soon. And as Laura mentioned, the Conservation and Land Use Program is this joint initiative between Cornell University as well as the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. It's a longstanding partnership that really marries and integrates the incredible technical assistance and outreach and financial assistance that the Conservation and Land Use Program provides with the research arm of the University of Cornell. So we're really excited to talk with you about some work that we've done to really document conservation actions, to really identify challenges and highlight successful strategies that local governments have adopted throughout the region. And the goal of this project is really to support that science-based planning while strengthening those conservation outcomes that make such a big difference on the ground in terms of benefiting both communities and the environment. So in today's presentations, we're going to walk you through the research objectives and methodology of the study and what municipalities are doing to take these proactive efforts towards conservation. So why is this important? Next. This is important because municipalities really matter in the Hudson Valley watershed. For example, these are just a few examples of the incredible work that they're doing around what Laura mentioned in terms of like inventorying, planning, prioritizing, and then thinking about what tools they can use to preserve their land. For example, The town of Phillipstown has developed a community preservation plan, a critical environmental area being identified in the town of New Paltz, as well as conservation subdivisions. Municipalities are using a variety of really innovative policy and planning tools within the land use planning framework to really conserve those natural resources in their communities. And they each make those decisions that have that impact throughout the entire watershed because it's all connected. So with that, I'm really pleased to turn it over to Dr. Ponstingel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shorna, and thank you so much, Laura, for doing the introductions. And also thank you everyone for attending our talk today. I will just outline the rest of our presentation. So first, I will talk about our research goals. Then I will talk about the methodology that we used in this project, specifically the creation of this Municipal Conservation Efforts Index and doing the interviews with municipal officials and volunteers. And finally, we want to talk about two case studies of two towns, town of New Paltz and town of Phillipstown. We had three main research goals behind this project. First, we wanted to document local municipal conservation actions and tools that facilitate stronger ecosystem protection. Second, we wanted to investigate both successful initiatives and challenges in conservation planning on the local level in Hudson Valley by doing the interviews and talking to people, learning from town officials and volunteers. And finally, we wanted to reflect on the outreach and technical support provided by the Hudson River Estuary Program. So the first stage of our research was to create Municipal Conservation Effort Index. We included 19 conservation actions or efforts, strategies in this index. You can see them here on the slide. So for example, these strategies include having a natural resource inventory, or open space inventory, open space plan, so on. And we collected data on these 19 conservation actions for 256 municipalities in Hudson Valley, including cities, towns, and villages. So for each municipality, we determined whether these conservation efforts were present, absent, or in progress. And if a conservation effort was present, we would assign 1 to a municipality. If it was absent, 0. And if it was in progress but incomplete, we would assign 0.5. And then we calculated the index, which represents the sum of these 19 weighted conservation strategies. And the index was calculated in December 2021 on the scale from 0 to 1. And here on this map, you can see the spatial distribution of the index values in Hudson Valley. The darker colors, the dark blue colors, they show high values, and the light color shows low values of the index. So you can see, you can examine the map and see some areas where you have clusters of municipalities that have high values or low values. And and we ended up with eight municipalities have a value of 0, so they didn't implement any of those 19 conservation actions. The average value for 256 municipalities was 0.253, and the highest score was 0.78. On this graph, the gray bars shows the frequency of index values. So you can see that less municipalities had higher values than lower values of the index. So from these 19 conservation actions, the most popular ones, the most common ones were steep slope protection, Climate Smart Communities Pledge, and Conservation Subdivision. So these three conservation policies, more than half municipalities implement them. And the less popular were included watercourse setback protection, wetland setback protection, and natural resources inventory law. So I just wanted to mention these statistics. So after we calculated the index values and assigned a value to each municipality, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper and learn more about municipal perceptions of ecosystem conservation, which includes how they prioritize these conservation actions. And also we wanted to learn about municipal experiences with local land use decision making and learn more about the level of community engagement in conservation. So for this purpose, we conducted a series of interviews. This happened during the winter of 2023-2024. And we conducted semi-structured interviews with with municipal officials and volunteers, for example, town supervisors, or members of Community Advisory Council, or members of Natural Resource Inventory Committee. And we ended up interviewing several towns, and seven of those interviews we used to write the case studies that ended up in our outreach publication. Those 7 towns received high and medium values of the Municipal Conservation Effort Index. Our case studies, they all have the same format, and they include several sections. So each case study talks about examples of successful conservation policies and actions, about community engagement in conservation planning, intermunicipal collaboration, challenges faced by the town, next steps in conservation planning, and finally, each of the town provided some advice to other municipalities or shared their strategies for success. So today we want to talk about 2 of these case studies, and the first one is the town of New Paltz, which actually received the highest value of the Conservation Efforts Index. They implement 15 out of 19 conservation efforts from the list that I previously showed to you. So we interviewed Daniil Bettas, who was a town supervisor at the time that we did the interview, and also Amanda Gotta, who is the town planning board member. So first, we talked about examples of successfully implemented conservation policies. And one of the examples that they provided was the Community Preservation Fund, which is a dedicated account that provides municipalities with the opportunity to raise money for local land conservation. And New Paltz is the first town in Ulster County that created the Community Preservation Fund. And this fund, it helps generate open space funding through local real estate transfer tax, which is a one-time fee on home sales, on homes that's sold above the median price for Ulster County. So the Community Preservation Fund, it allows the town to support farmland, habitat protection, historic preservation without increasing taxes for residents. Another very successful conservation policy implemented in New Paltz includes the Wetland and Watercourse Protection Law. It was enacted in 2011, and this law regulates activities that might affect wetlands as small as 0.1 acres. But it also protects 50-foot buffers around wetlands between 0.1 and 1 acre in size, and 100-foot buffers for wetlands larger than 1 acre. Also, this protection law protects watercourse buffers ranging between 50 and 200 feet. So all these protection measures, they goes beyond what is already protected by the New York State. When talking about the community engagement, both Neil and Amanda, they mentioned that the residents in New Paltz are very interested in conservation planning, and they volunteer. For example, more than 100 people were involved in the creation of the natural resources inventory. They provided input, pictures, and also reviewed the final document. New Paltz also has the Climate Action Coalition and Climate Smart Task Force, both are run by volunteers. So you can see here a lovely photo of the town of New Paltz Climate Smart Task Force gathering. But there are some challenges too, and Neil mentioned that one of the challenges with public engagement included reaching out, trying to reach out as many residents as they can, because there are multiple communication channels and not everyone is reading the same newspaper, or not everybody is watching the same TV channel. So they try to announce things on the town or village websites, but still sometimes some residents not aware if some initiative is happening. So this is one of the challenges that they mentioned related to the public engagement. Town of New Paltz actively collaborates with other municipalities on different conservation projects. So for example, when New Paltz was working on the Community Preservation Fund, they received advice and help from town of Warwick and Red Hook. These towns were early adopters in the implementing CPF. When working on the critical environmental area project, the town learned from the experience shared by town of Fort Washington. And also town of New Paltz collaborated with town of Lloyd on the habitat mapping during the Hudsonian biodiversity assessment training. And town of New Paltz is involved with the Hudson Valley Regional Council, which includes members of conservation advisory councils from different municipalities who share the experiences and ideas. So this is some of the examples that our interviewees provided when talked about the intermunicipal collaboration. Some other challenges that they talked about included applying for grants. And what Neil and Amanda talked about regarding grants is that the New York State Grants Gateway application portal is not really user-friendly, and sometimes it's hard to navigate it and find specific grants. But they also mentioned that sometimes they don't have enough staff to administer the grant and file the reports. And also multiple grants sometimes have the same due date, which makes the application process even more challenging. We put here the link to this application portal, as if anybody from the audience is interested in see what kind of grants the state, the municipalities can apply for. You can follow this link. One other challenges that our interviewees talked about is a financial challenge related to hiring a consultant to help prepare for conservation plan or policy. So moving to our second case study, here we have a town of Phillipstown, and the Phillipstown also received a high value of municipal conservation effort index, and they implement 11 out of 19 conservation efforts. In this town, I've also had two interviewees, and we interviewed Andy Geller, who is the chair of the conservation board, and Ned Prentice, who is the chair of a comprehensive plan committee. And Ned, he talked about, as a chair of comprehensive plan committee, he talked about the successful implementation and updating how they successfully updated the comprehensive plan into 2021. Comprehensive plan, it serves as the official guide for municipalities' land use policies and goals. provides insights into current land development trends, community resources, public needs, and environmental issues. So, for example, if town officials need to make a decision on a specific town ordinance or policy, and they have some concerns or questions about it, they can sometimes refer to comprehensive plan for guidance. And here, what Ned specifically talked about is that the town keeps the comprehensive plan committee as an ongoing phenomenon, which proved to be successful because the committee every year they review the comprehensive plan and they reflect on what has been done during the year, and also they pick the items from the plan that they prioritize for the next year. Another successful conservation action that they talked about was the conservation overlay zone. This is a land use tool that aims to protect communities' natural and cultural resources, for example, stream corridors, wildlife habitats, or scenic ridgelines. And the overlay zone includes additional standards and incentives to existing zoning to address conservation needs within a specific defined area. So in Phillipstown, some of the examples of conservation overlay zone that they have is the Aquifer Overlay District. It protects the groundwater resources. They also have the Cold Spring Watershed Overlay District. It protects the water supply of the villages of Cold Spring and Nelsonville that included in the Phillipstown. They also have the open space conservation overlay districts that protects parcels of land identified in the open space index that are 30 acres or more. And they have the floodplain overlay districts that controls development within the 100-year floodplain. When talking about the community engagement, our interviewees here, they describe different mechanisms of public outreach they have in Phillipstown. So for example, they have a very extensive resident email list. So they send emails that include town's agenda to the residents several times a month. They have town website, and they also have a YouTube channel where they televise various planning board, zoning board, conservation, and town board meetings. Residents can watch it on the YouTube. And they also talked about how people are willing to volunteer to serve on boards and committees. So for example, Ned was saying that when a position opens on any board, there is always somebody who is ready to jump in to volunteer on the board, and they don't have and never have a shortage of volunteers when it comes to serving on the committees. Then they sounded very proud of it. Next, we talked about the intermunicipal collaboration. So the town of Phillipstown, they include the villages of Cold Spring and Nelsonville, and they work together on the stormwater management. This is one of the examples of collaboration. Phillipstown also became a climate smart community in 2017, and the village of Cold Spring recently established a climate smart task force. So both of this, the climate smart community and climate smart task force, they have about 50 volunteers that are actively engaged in regular meetings. And finally, when we talked about challenges, both Andy and Ned, they talked mostly about challenges related to community engagement, to public engagement here. So for example, they mentioned that many residents in Phillipstown, they live in town only during the summer month, which makes it a little bit challenging to engage them in the conservation initiatives, because as they not live in their full year, they have sometimes some of those residents have less interest and awareness of town affairs. And also, they mentioned that Phillipstown is divided into 3 school districts, which further complicates communication among the residents and also contributes to sense of division. So for example, Ned was talking about part of the town that's known as the Continental Village. And because the Phillipstown is located very close to the Westchester, sometimes residents of the Continental Village, they get mixed up with the Westchester School District, and they say that sometimes they feel isolated from Phillipstown. So here we stop with the case studies, and we move into our summary, and I will pass this to Shorna again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah, just as we conclude, I just wanted to, stress that the municipalities that were part of the research really bring an incredible amount of expertise, of decades of planning experience into conservation and land use at the local level. And we're just really appreciative and grateful for the insights that they shared, as well as the many useful insights to advance local conservation planning. I really love the graphic that Laura showed at the beginning that really helps municipalities with the first step of really that process of conservation planning in the municipality. Really starts with understanding what you have, that idea of starting with a natural resource inventory. And that was really a strong recommendation that came out from the research as well, is that municipalities really find it to be very valuable to start with a natural resource inventory. And other recommendations that they had were, to take advantage of the technical and financial assistance, despite the barriers in accessing some of those systems. If that can be overcome, that's really helpful in municipalities really having that capacity to undertake a natural resource inventory or think about how they might use maps to prioritize areas within their community. We also found that municipalities, really across all of the municipalities that we talked to, a lot of them stress the importance of working with peers, learning from their other peer municipalities. So that idea of intermunicipal learning and collaboration was something that was also prominent. And also just what they could really gain by reaching out to the community and really engaging people across a variety of different perspectives. And that includes realizing synergies across different boards and commissions. So really making sure that like planning and zoning and conservation advisory councils and parks, these different boards and commissions within municipalities are communicating. We also found that a lot of municipalities were taking these proactive actions to address natural resource conservation and priorities in their local land use planning efforts. And our research really emphasizes that the importance of that intermunicipal cooperation and those creative funding mechanisms for the long-term success of these efforts. And despite the challenges that communities really are kind of leveraging the available assistance that they have, a lot of that comes from the conservation and land use program and other entities that are really helping municipalities and supporting them in these efforts. So kind of looking ahead, the continued exchange of knowledge and experiences among municipalities, we really feel like that's going to be quite key to really scaling up these conservation efforts. And we really encourage you to explore additional case studies that we've compiled, which really illustrate the diversity and different types of approaches that are being taken across the Hudson River estuary watershed. So here, maybe we could put the link in the chat as well. This publication, Municipal Conservation Stories, includes 7 case studies, as well as some of the data across all of the municipalities, some of the quantitative data that shows all the municipalities that undertook conservation efforts to really see that. And so this can be a really helpful publication if anybody would like to delve a little bit deeper. There's also a story map about the project. We could probably put that in the chat as well. Just different ways to enter into learning about the municipalities and the incredible work that they're doing around municipal conservation planning. And if we could go to the final slide here, we just want to really thank the New York State Water Resources Institute at Cornell and DEC for the support for helping to fund part of the research that we shared with you today. We also really want to acknowledge all of the incredible volunteers and officials at the local level who took their time to share their experiences with us. We're greatly appreciative of that. And also Christine Vanderlyn on the conservation and land use team, for just the ground truthing that was so critical that Christine and Laura provided to the research to make sure that it was what we were researching was really reflective of what was happening on the ground. And that was really valuable to me as a researcher. And yes, we had some amazing student researchers on the team who are named here, Caroline, Sarah, Devin, Alfredo, and Karen, and also had an advisor on the project, Dr. Siders, who's at University of Delaware in their School of Public Policy. So thank you all for your time and interest in this work, and we hope this presentation sparks further dialogue and collaboration towards conservation efforts, and we look forward to your questions.